We are recording. All right, everybody, welcome to the RFP Success Show, where we connect you to strategies and resources to help you win more RFPs. I am your host, Lisa Hurrick, the #1 sought after authority on RFP success and passionate about helping small businesses win at business. So today we have the wonderful Cerila Gaillard, who is a project management guru, and I'm so excited to talk to her. Let me give you just a little bit of a statement that she makes about project management before I tell her more about herself. The difference between a successful project and an unsuccessful project is project management. That's why we're talking about it, all you RFP people, because so important to have. Without project management, businesses will continue to struggle with managing projects efficiently and maximizing their business resources. Cerila helps businesses remove these barriers by educating them on project management process, explaining the benefits of why project management matters, and launching the project management process into their business operation. So Cerila has served, you're going to love this background, she knows her project management stuff. She has served as Certified Project Manager Professional, PMP is the abbreviation for that, for Fortune 500 companies, which included Conduent, which is a Xerox corporation, General Motors, Cardinal Health, and United Technologies Corporation. She actually received her PMP certification through the Project Management Institute and is a certified Scrum Master. The terminology around project management cracks me up. Through Scrum Alliance. And she also received an Associate of Applied Science in Business Management and Marketing from Sage Junior College of Albany and a Bachelor of Science in Business Information Systems from the University of Phoenix. She resides in Tempe. Woo, go Tempe. In her free time, she volunteers as a project coordinator, City of Phoenix and IRS for the Volunteer Income Tax Assistant Program, member ambassador for the Phoenix chapter of PMI, which is Project Management Institute. She's a mentor at the Galvanize Phoenix co-working space, which is this amazing tech-oriented startup ecosystem here in Phoenix, actually not just Phoenix. And she's also a venture mentor for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program at ASU, Arizona State University here in Tempe. Woo, girl, that's a lot of stuff. I love it. Welcome, Cerila. I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. I know, this is so fun. And it's so fun too, because I have met so many amazing people, you know, in my quest to build this business, right? I've met so many people that offer so much great information that, you know, a business owner who is responding to RFPs, it would take them forever to get all this information, and here I can bring it to their fingertips. So today we're of course talking about project management, and project management is huge in RFPs. If you don't have somebody managing the project, it's probably not going to go well. So I'm going to start off with kind of a really basic question, but what even is project management and why is it important?
Well, I can give you the legal definition of project management, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bore you guys with the legal definition. So I came up with my own definition that can relate to small businesses. Okay. So when I talk about project management, I'm talking about a repeatable process with valuable tools and techniques to ensure maximum productivity. And that maximum productivity has to do with your cost, with your time, and with your resources, right? Because we all don't have unlimited resources, right? We don't have unlimited time. We don't have, you know, all the budget that we want, or the money that we have, and resources, and not just people resources. We're also talking about technology, right?
Right.
So we want to make sure that every project that we bring into our business, whether it is our client projects, our business, we can go out and get clients, or our internal projects, right? We always forget about our internal projects, but those are just as more important as your client's projects, right?
That's true.
Sure that we are maximizing the resources that we have in our business when we're working on different projects, either our clients or our internal projects.
That's so I love what you said there, because, you know, we don't really stop and think about all of those different pieces of the project management puzzle, right? The
Right.
resources and the time and the money. And hey, heck yeah, how many of us would love to have this endless supply of money where we could just not have to worry about anything? But I don't think anybody is in that position, right? So
Exactly.
why do you think that, I always find that one of the challenges with talking to people about project management is that people are like, oh, that's too much work. It's too much time up front. We don't want to over process stuff.
Right.
You hear that too, I'm sure. What is your rebuttal to that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I'm glad you bring that up because when we talk about project management, the legal, all the lingo and stuff like that, people really don't understand, right? So when we say, "Hey, I work in the project management, and we have this project management methodology,"
Yes.
once I say that, it's going over their head, right? So what I've begun to do is talk about process. We all know that we need processes in our business to handle work that comes in and out, right? So project management is a process. It's just another process in your business to handle projects, which are right now they're getting more complex. They're getting bigger, right?
Yes.
And you have to have a process in place to ensure that that project is going to be successful, right? A lot
Yeah.
of times, small businesses don't have a process in place, and they manage their project what I like to call project by crisis, right? Crisis management, right? Every meeting is going to be a process. Every meeting is going to be a crisis, right? We're
It's
going to have
true.
problems, right? People are not going to want to come to your meeting because we're always going to be talking about problems. We're not going to know where we're going, what we have already done, and what's in the present, right? And as part of the project management process, you have to have a process in place to make sure that that project is being successfully going, I should say, successfully moving through that process so that you can become successful, right? So,
Yeah.
and then using all of those resources that you have, right? Because small businesses, I'm a small business. I have multiple projects going on in my business right now,
For
right?
sure, right?
And so do you, right? So if you don't have a process to deal with projects, and then you have multiple projects on top of that, yeah, you're talking about not pleasing the customer itself, right? Because the customer's gonna get mad. It's like, hey, what's going on? Why isn't my project moving, right? Communication is going to be another issue as well. So think of it as a process that you can use that is going to be repeatable and it's going to get you through to that being successful for your client and for yourself as well.
Yeah, and this comes into play so much when it comes to RFP responses, right? Because while every RFP is different, the process itself can be the same.
Right.
And I will talk to clients all the time who are like, yeah, we don't really have a process. We just like whoever's available jumps in. They don't really have anybody assigned to manage it. And when I say that when you're listening to me on the phone, I've got my little air quotes going, right? Because
Right.
they're probably not really managing it all that well. Um, and that process and that system is so important to keep you on track with deadlines. Everything that Cerila is talking about right now, you guys have to know that you have to have that kind of a process if you're going to keep responding to RFPs. Obviously on the bigger scale of business, you need it as well. But one of the things, Cerila, that I find with my clients is that they just toss anybody into the role of project manager. Oh, this person has time, so let's let them manage this response for us. Um, you, of course, are somebody who has gone to school for this. You've got certifications in this. What would you say to that?
I would say this. It's just like almost in businesses where it kind of throw people into management. It's like, oh, you go figure that out, right? It doesn't work. There are some qualities about project managers that you want to have in that person managing that project. First of all, you want to make sure that they can take control of the project, right?
Yeah.
That they are able to, I would say, manage that particular project. You're going to have to need some leadership skills, right? So leadership is kind of uncomfortable, right? How do you tell a team member that they're not doing their job well? How do you communicate that, right? How do
Especially if
you
it's an upper, right? Like somebody in an
exactly
upper position. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that becomes like, oh, okay. So how do I communicate with my decision makers, those VPs or directors? Like, hey, this is not working. Compared to how do I communicate with the project team, right? Because there's different communications going
Yeah.
on, right?
Great point.
So effective communication, it's one of those qualities that you also need, right? Because how do you communicate the same language at different levels, but you're all moving in the same directions, right? And that is a challenge, right? I don't think anyone has a solution for that because it depends on the particular project, right?
Right.
Also know the quality. You got to take control of the project, right? Because a lot of times, stakeholders or sponsors will kind of blow you back and forth. No, I want this. No, I want that. And then your team is like, no, we can't do this, right? So
That never happens.
that never happens, right? Never happens in business, right? But you have to go back and understand. You got to be a strong person, but like, okay, this is what the project goals are. These are the requirements, right? And kind of get people back on track, and let them know the bad news. Hey, we're not going to meet deadline, right? How do you communicate that, right? I'm going to have to let you go because you're not doing the work itself, right? So all of those soft skills
Yes.
that we don't really talk about, right? We can have the technical piece of it. I can ram down what the process is and kind of get you through. But those soft skills as a project manager become very vital. I can kind of give you one stat that the PMI has put out there. 90% of what you do is communication as a project manager. Now, it's not the technical stuff. It's, not going through the tasks and saying, oh, this is complete, that's complete. It's communication. That is the key. And about 57% of projects fail due to communication, right?
Wow.
So it's more on the balance of the soft skill and not necessarily the technical skills that you're going to need as a project manager.
You know what? That's a really great point too, because we do think about that. And even I do, I think, okay, if I'm going to bring in a project manager, I'm thinking, are they efficient? Are they able to, pay attention to deadlines? Or do they have a good attention to detail? And we think of them as managing the plan, managing the process. But there is so much more to that. That is a huge piece of it, that communication piece. And the other thing that I was going to say too is that, and I'm sure that you've seen this in your world, is that a lot of times we undervalue project management so that we, again, assign it to the wrong person, but we give it to somebody who's got 80 other things on their plate, right? Well,
Right.
you can do project management of this project, but you can also write and you can also lead and you can also do this, this, and this. But is it not true that really the project manager should have their role as project manager, because now we're looking at all these other things that really come into play for a project manager, like all these soft skills.
Exactly. So when you talk about project manager, I have an IT background and I have done a lot of IT projects, right? So
Yes.
I understand the IT world. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to jump in and do the work, right? I'm not going to be project manager and then go out and do all these, develop the software or anything like that. That helps me as an IT manager understand the legal and understand maybe some problems going on, correct? But I'm not going to get down into the weeds and actually, go out and do the work. And sometimes I think businesses get confused, like, oh, you got an IT background and a project manager? Great, I'm going to get this all to you.
Yes.
And, we have to push back and say, yes, I understand the IT portion of it or the RFP process of it, but my job is to manage the project itself and to bring in those experts, that can deal with the RFP process and kind of move forward, right? So we do have to be, to kind of push back just a little, right? Because sometimes we do need to jump in, right? And I don't have a problem being proactive because that's how I learn about different industries. But
Right.
sometimes we gotta, step back, right, and get the experts involved in that RFP process. Because otherwise, if we're doing the work, we're not watching the project, you
Yeah,
know?
and it's harder to do all of that. It's
Ex-
harder to do all of that and stay objective, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
So, let me ask you a question about kind of simplicity around project management, because you mentioned this at the onset of the call, and this is really funny. I actually called Cerila like a week ago and said, "Can you explain to me the difference between Scrum and Agilent and all of these project management methodologies, if I understand it correctly?"
right.
Um, and you can get really bogged down in all that there is, all the technical side of project management, right? But if you're not, you meaning the listeners, if you don't need to be a project manager yourself, you don't need to get bogged down in all of that. And most of my listeners are probably not going to really care about the difference between waterfall and Agile and Scrum and all of that, right? Um, so that's for somebody like you, Cerila, who is a certified project management expert, and what you're doing. For somebody that just needs to keep it really simple, what kind of a tip or tips would you give them to help them manage a project but keep it simple without feeling the need to get all that complex with all of the stuff that, like, right?
Right. So I think most people have a misunderstanding about project management. They think project management is not flexible.
Ooh, good
Project
point.
management is very flexible depending on the project, right? If it's very simple, you're not going to need a whole bunch of, templates and, different things that kind of go on in the project, right? You can keep it, you can pick and choose. That's why it says tools and techniques with an S, right? Because
Yes.
you're not going to have to, take a, like, okay, I have to do all of this stuff to get there. I'm only like moving to California, I don't need all these tools and techniques, right? You can pick and choose what you need. You can pick and choose what techniques you're going to use, right? Whether it's brainstorming or going out and finding an expert to do it, right? When you're kind of developing the goals, right? You can pick and choose. And most people get bogged down. It's like, oh, I got to follow this methodology to the T. If I don't, I'm not going to be successful, and I don't understand. No, simple, flexible, depending on how big or how small your project is.
That is really important, right? Because I think too, a lot of times people think project management and they just think it's too big and I don't even want to think about it. They think the same thing when they hear process, system, project management, any of that. It's too arduous, it's too big, I don't want to over process. But you still need the process, you still need to project manage, you just keep it flexible and simple. I love that.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
I love it. I always, as a project manager, I always try to keep it simple and concise, right?
Yeah.
For the people on the project and for the stakeholders, right? They have multiple things they're doing on a higher level. You got your employees who's working on multiple projects, right? So I always try to keep it as clear as possible, as simple as possible, and as concise so that when we get in the meeting, right? I only do 30-minute meetings, okay? So
Oh,
I'm not the
yay.
kind of person that does the hour meeting. I'm in there, I'm like, okay, this is what we need to talk about this week. This is
Yes.
the way we're talking about next week, but we're not going to talk about next week's stuff, right? We're just going to try to keep it, hey, keep it in the present. But even though we know that we need to be moving forward, right, to the next week. So keep it simple. I like that term.
Yeah, I know. And it's what makes you a really good project manager, because I have been with project managers that over manage and over process and things like that. And just, what I know about you, because we've known each other for a while now,
Exactly.
and just in the conversations that we've had and what you're saying here, I love that approach because and especially in the world that I'm living in, again, with the RFP side of things, actually with everybody, right? Nobody's got time for over anything. Nobody's got
Exactly.
time for over processing, and small business owners sure don't when they're responding to an RFP. This is like something that's come on their plate that they haven't set aside time for. It's like all of a sudden they've got to carve this in somehow into
Right.
the world. So So let me ask you this. What do you see as like the top pitfalls of project management?
Oh, that's a good question.
A
I
loaded
love this
question, right?
question. The top pitfall, and this is my pet peeve. We do not take time to plan.
Oh,
Right?
no, we don't.
We do not. And just kind of give you some stats. 40% of projects fail due to lack of planning,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Um, I talk to small businesses and they're like, okay, I got the goals, I know what I'm doing, and let's execute. And my first question is, what are you executing?
Yeah, and
Right?
they don't know, right? They're like, we just want to get to the end result. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. We need to take the time to plan. And I know sometimes we get in a rush because the client's like, hey, we got to go, we got to go. But we really need to step back and say, client XYZ, in order for this to be successful, I need sufficient time to plan for this, right?
Yep.
Especially when not so much of the simple projects, but those medium and complex projects. And as I said before, a lot of these projects that are coming down the road, they're not simple anymore, right? They're
Yeah.
getting more complex, right? You got multiple things moving at the same time, and you want to take the time to plan. And when we talk about planning, people usually talk about the project plan, right? I got my
Right.
tasks, I got, my deadlines, I got my resources, I'm ready to go. And I said, I would tell you, you're about 25% there, right?
Right.
So some of the other things we need to talk about is communication. How are you going to communicate with people? We need to plan that out, right? What about your risk? What happens if you have risks that you know of that you don't plan for, and it comes up in a project, right? That can
Right.
derail the project itself. How do you deal with change management? How do you deal with a stakeholder coming in and say, "Oh, I want to make changes," right? First thing we want to do is say yes. But I always tell people or small businesses, if you say yes to a change without doing the analysis, you are agreeing that you can do that change based on the budget that's already there, the resources already there, and the deadline that you have agreed to, right? So if you take
Mm-hmm.
anything away from this, plan. You got to sufficiently plan, right? Even though planning, sometimes there's changes and sometimes, things get in the way, and that's okay. But whatever you don't plan for, it's going to show up when you're executing.
It is so true. It's so funny. I had this conversation this morning about planning in general for businesses, and small businesses are horrible about it because they just don't want to take the time to do it. Or they say, I'll do it next month, I'll do it next year, whatever. And it just never happens. And you can't have a viable business without planning. You can't have a viable project without planning. And if you don't plan your RFP, I mean, from the beginning,
Yep.
there are things that I work with my clients on to plan that are RFP specific, that if they don't talk about that at the front end of the RFP, it's all going to fall apart and you're not going to win, right? And it's the
Exactly.
same with any kind of a project. So I love that you brought that up.
Yes, plan well, right? You can't plan for everything, but it's a plan to get you where you need to go. It tells you, okay, this is my roadmap to success,
Yep.
right? Right. So if you don't know the whole, if you don't have, just think about it, if you have half a picture, that half a picture not going to tell you anything. But if I have a whole picture and all the things that I need to do, I'm feeling much better, right? A lot of times I hear small businesses say, I feel overwhelmed. Yeah, you feel overwhelmed because you don't have a plan and you have multiple projects that you don't have a plan for, right? You're dealing with time management, you're dealing with priorities, competing priorities, right? And you're dealing with the daily, operations of your business. So,
Yeah, they're not you can't possibly pay attention to all of that and know all your deadlines without a plan.
exactly.
Yeah.
So plan correctly. The second thing I would say is understand what the goals are. Right? Here's another thing. Here's another pitfall. Having goals that are very vague.
Right?
Right?
Yes.
And then expecting that we're going to be successful at the end, and then when it comes to the end, it's like, well, that's not what I wanted, but that's what you said, right? So, right? Because I'm interpreting what you're saying, right? So again, that communication piece. Make sure you understand what the goals are and break those goals down to requirements, right? We come with a vague statement, a vague goal. No, you got to break that down so you understand that those requirements are in the plan and those tasks are attached to those requirements, right?
Oh, I love this, because you know where that shows up in RFPs is actually on the RFP development side, right? So I work also with entities to help them create their RFPs. And I will tell you that 99.9% of the time, they don't really know why I mean, they know why they're letting the RFP out. But if you really say, like, what's the ultimate outcome that you want here? They haven't thought through that. And then guess what? The RFP is a hot mess. And
Right.
then the responses are a hot mess because they don't know what they wanted in return. So yeah, this is great. That's a really great point.
And then the third thing I would say, unrealistic times and deadlines.
That
So
never happens, ever, ever, ever.
exactly. I'm sure you see them in RFPs, right? Oh, I got to
Yes.
get this RFP in like next week,
Right.
right?
Right.
Probably not going to happen, right? You should have been planning that maybe 4 weeks in advance, right?
Oh my gosh, all the time.
Exactly. Taking on customers' projects and they want it on this deadline, and you tell them, yes, I can do it. You want to push back. You want to do that. That's why planning is so important, because just because a client says, hey, I want this done by next month, in the next month, when you're going through your planning stuff, you're going to find out that, oh, that deadline, we're not going to make that deadline. So you have two options. Either you're giving me the time to complete my project, or you de-scope, which means you start taking out requirements so that I can meet your goals, right? But we don't really say that to the customer because we want to play nice. But
right.
these are things that when we talk about maximizing your productivity, these are things that can, make your project go into, instead of being a profit, it's going now to be a loss, right? Because now, because you haven't talked to the customer and you haven't give him or her a realistic, plan and time and expectations and stuff like that. So you got to talk to your customer and be very real about, what you're doing, because they will appreciate it, right? Because they don't know, right? But if you don't tell them, they're like, oh man, this RFP next week, not gonna happen. Maybe you kind of take this up as lessons learned, and next week or the next RFP, this is what you need to do, right? To kind of give them that advice. But if we don't talk to our customers and be real with our customers, we're putting ourselves in a position where that contract is now a loss, it's not a profit. So we don't want to put ourselves in that position.
Well, yeah. And it's interesting because I see this all the time with RFP responses, is that they don't have if they don't have a great process on the front end, or if they neglect the process or the timeline generally, because here's the deal with an RFP, you can't not meet the requirements and you can't not meet the timeline. And so what happens is that it gets scrunched on the back end and they submit crap. They submit a crap response, and then they're like, oh my God, we're working so hard on these RFPs. And it goes back to something that you said in the very beginning, which is you got to plan, people. That's what project management is all about, is planning. Don't feel like you have to make it so complicated. You've got to have a process of some sort, whether it's a simplistic process. You have to have that process in order to meet the deadline, stay on budget, all of that, which is probably going to be blown out of the water anyway at some point, right? Right. So we're running out of time, but I have one quick question for you. I have a couple more questions for you, but the first one is, what is one of your favorite project management tools that our listeners who need to keep it simple would benefit from?
Okay, so there's different project management softwares out there. And I would tell people, Excel does not work. Okay?
Whoops, that's what I use.
Stop using Excel as a project management software tool. I would say I like Smartsheets.
Okay.
It's an online version. I like it because it has a dashboard. So if you set up your dashboard, right, your stakeholders, your project team can see in a summary what's going on with the project itself. I
Yeah, and
also
it's really hot right now. Like Smartsheet's really big right now. I feel like
exactly.
I see it a lot. Yeah.
And they have a lot of templates. So, I don't like to kind of do things and start things from scratch. So I take one of their templates and I go in there and be like, okay, I'll move this column,
Perfect.
I rename this column. So I really do like the Smartsheets project making software. People are still using MS Project. That's still another good project management software.
But it's brutal. Like, let's
But
face it, it's brutal. Yeah.
yeah, but people are still using it because they brought the package. It's like,
Yes,
I'm gonna
yes.
use it, right? One thing I would say about project management software is the data that is important, right? We don't think as a project
That's
management
true.
software as the data, but once you get done with your project, you have all that data now to make decisions. You can see in there might be opportunities that may come across that you didn't know of. There are things that, maybe we need to stop doing, right? to
Yeah.
make our jobs a lot easier, right? Also, if you're doing similar projects, now you can get that estimate down to a science, right? If we do these
Ooh, I
type of,
love that.
it's going to cost us $150,000 in costs. We know that for a fact, right? So, that's why you should be using a project management software if to track all of the project also. But the data is incredible that you can get and use it for opportunities or to set your budgets.
That's great because I do always tell people, heck, you've got to track your data. If you don't know how much it costs to respond to an RFP, you're doing yourself a disservice. So great. So look
Exactly.
into Smartsheet. I mean, most of my listeners, I think MS Project's going to be way too big for most of my listeners, but Smartsheet's a really great way to go. So I would encourage you all to check that out. And Cerila, for you, how do my listeners get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do and more about project management?
Well, thanks, Lisa. You can get in touch with me at www.oysllc.com. I am also on Facebook and LinkedIn as well as Twitter. So that's how you can get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. And that was OYS?
Yes,
Okay.
llc.com.
OYSLLC.com. We'll have that in the show notes so everybody can grab a hold of that. Cerila, thank you so much. Time went by so fast. It
I
always does.
know.
I know. I feel like, well, I'm sure we'll have you on again because project management is such a huge, crucial piece of staying on track and managing the requirements of an RFP really well. So I'm sure we'll have you back in the future. Thank you again for being here. For all my listeners, you've been listening to the RFP Success Show with RFP expert Lisa Rehurick. And feel free, we would love for you to subscribe to our show on iTunes so you don't miss a show. And we'll be back with more tips and strategies to help you make your RFPs more successful. Ciao, everybody.